The Heroes and the Hidden by Kitty Cat on AO3. Episode 34. Chapter 29. She Belongs in a Dream. Shouta activated his quirk as Hizashi screamed in pain. His skin had begun to flake away, decaying into ash. Blood streamed from the wound as Hizashi fell onto his knees, clutching his hands to his neck, panting heavily. Izuku stared down at him, frightened, as he tried to shove himself out of the wheelchair. He clutched one hand close to his chest as he tried to tumble out of the chair, unsuccessfully. The pale villain turned to him, a smile creeping up to his eyes. "You are so cool, Eraserhead. Your quirk is OP." He flexed his fingers as Shouta held his gaze. He could see the mist villain move in the corner of his vision, shedding the jacket he wore to reveal his true body, mist swirling all around him. And here I thought we could have a simple shopping trip. The mist spoke, growing in size. Shouta turned his gaze to the mist villain, stopping any warping capabilities. They needed to get Izuku out of here. The pale villain raced at Shouta. But he didn't flinch as Nomuri whipped out Shot, grabbing the man's wrist and sliding through the top layer of flesh. He hissed, continuing his charge as Shouta used his capture weapon to grab him and throw him to the floor. "Midnight, now!" he yelled, tucking his head into his shirt. Nomuri released her quirk, letting it fill the store as patrons and Hizashi stumbled. The mist was starting to reach Shouta as well, making his vision blurry. He fought to keep his eyes open as the pale villain slowly went loose in his capture weapon. He glared at the mist villain, who seemed less affected by the sleep agent, the mist around him repelling Nomuri's pink mist. Izuku held his breath as he tried to grab for Hizashi, his hands reaching lamely in the air as he fell from his wheelchair, crashing onto the floor with a scream. Shouta looked away from the mist villain for a second to make sure that Izuku was okay. That was a mistake, as the mist suddenly expanded next to the pale-haired villain, sucking him in. Shouta yanked on his capture weapon, letting it come undone as he charged at Izuku, wrapping himself around the shaking boy's body. He felt the air around them grow colder, and could see the purple mist move around them as Izuku relaxed in his arms, falling asleep. He shut his eyes himself, preparing himself for the feeling of being warped before it disappeared, leaving the store with a haze of pink mist. "You okay, kid?" Shouta murmured, trying to fight the sleep that threatened to take him. He set Izuku down gently, wrapping his capture weapon around him in case something happened. He crawled to Hizashi, placing his hands on his bleeding neck, ignoring the feeling of dust in his fingers. He pushed harder as his vision swam and his head pounded. He couldn't lose Hizashi. Not now. Not ever. "Nomuri," he whispered before collapsing next to Hizashi and the kid, letting his eyes fall shut. He would trade his life for them all to be okay. Naomasa stared at the sleeping child, horrified. It had been over an hour since he had been brought in, and he still had not woken up. Doctors had been in and out to check on his injuries, touching the enlarged skin to see a reaction. He didn't wake. He simply curled tighter, his body shaking, with phantom chills and a high 103-degree fever. Sweat pulled down his body despite Naomasa's attempt to cool him down. His body was unresponsive to anything, only his mind seemed to be active to everything. "Is he going to be okay?" Aizawa asked the newest doctor, who fell along Izuku's legs, slowly feeling the broken bone. The doctor sighed, rubbing his eyes. "Without an X-ray, I can't be 100% sure, but the break feels bad. Do we know what caused it?" "No." Yamada responded, in sign, staring down at the kid. He needed proper medical attention as well, but he refused to leave the kid's side until he woke. So the best the doctors could do was put a large band-aid over it and tape it up to stop the bleeding. The damage was minimal, though. It looked gruesome. No vocal cords or major arteries were damaged. Simply the skin on top. He still had been banned from speaking or moving his head too much by Aizawa, who clutched his hand tightly. Izuku whimpered, louder this time, turning over on the bed. He continuously flickered his wrist and legs out, damaging his leg worse at the sporadic movements. The doctor grabbed his ankle and held it down as he kicked out, trying to kick away the doctor. He screamed, trying to move his leg away from the doctor's grasp. The doctor held it down, tight, despite Izuku's best attempts. "He can't injure it any worse," the doctor said, latching it down onto the table with a leather strap. "That should hold until he calms down." Izuku shot up wide as he kicked, screaming and throwing his head back as the pain that must have surged through his body. He shook a glance around the room quickly, trying to remove his leg from its hold. "Help!" he whispered, twisting his body to try to free his leg. Naomasa dove forward, unlatching the strap despite the doctor's protest, as Izuku pulled more. He stumbled from the metal bed, being caught tightly by Aizawa's capture weapon, and sat on the couch. Izuku glanced at them fearfully, tucking his good leg up to his chest as he scanned them. "Hey, Izuku," Aizawa said, moving the metal bed and crouching in front of the boy. "It's Eraserhead." Izuku stared at him, though, his good hand quickly reaching the opposite arm, scratching his nails up and down his torn-up skin. Many of his cuts looked new, too precise to be done by Izuku's nails. No, they were knife marks, carved up in the shape of an M, up and down his arms. Aizawa reached forward slowly, attempting to show he wasn't a threat. Izuku struck out, grabbing his capture weapon tightly in his good hand, and pulling back sharply. Aizawa choked as the scarf tightened around his throat, and the boy stared at his, horrified. He grabbed Izuku's hand, twisting it back until he let it go, allowing him to stumble back. He grabbed at his neck, loosening the scarf and tossing it to the floor. It was designed to be almost impossible to choke him. But the boy had managed to find the one spot of weakness and utilize it to endanger Aizawa. He could be a truly terrifying villain. "Izuku." Naomasa tries, sitting on the floor, further from the kid. His eyes darted to Naomasa, tears streaming down his face. The kid's face was hard to read. An emotion, almost like acknowledgement, crossed his green eyes. He tightened his fist as Naomasa tried to get closer, tensing up as he closed his bad hand. Naomasa stepped back, and the boy instantly relaxed, his eyes scanning the room, and locking onto the metal bed. He rubbed at his wrist, mouthing something as he stared at the strap that Naomasa now held in his hands. Yamada sighed, walking towards the kid slowly. The kid stared at him, and its large bandage, horrified, before staring at his hands. My fault. Death." He spoke just loud enough for Naomasa to hear him. It was the best reaction they have gotten so far, which was saying something. Yamada shook his head slightly, moving the sign before dropping his hands. "I'm alive, Izuku." Izuku stared up at him with large, innocent eyes, tears glistening. "It's not your fault." Izuku broke down sobbing as his body shook with every grasp of air he took. "My fault. All of it." He gasped through tears, staring at the stumps of his fingers, letting the tears fall onto them. Yamada didn't get any closer as the boy sobbed, snot mixing into his face. He sobbed as the four adults looked on for minutes, his little body shaking so violently that Naomasa was afraid he would shatter. He scratched at his arms, pulling up the scabs from the letter M's, letting the blood seep down his arm. This time, Naomasa didn't try to stop him, as he slowly calmed down, his hand stopping. He glanced up at Aizawa, his eyes so void of hope as he whispered, "You should have let me fall." Aizawa choked back a response, tears streaming down his face as he matched Izuku's eyes. Naomasa would have cried as well, if it wasn't for the door getting thrown open as Izuku finally started to calm down. Izuku flinched and stared at the door, his hands twitching as he watched Hitoshi run at him, hugging him tightly. Izuku screamed in pain as Hitoshi hit not only his shattered leg, but his finger stumps as well. Hitoshi pulled back, afraid, before Izuku smiled slightly at him. "I'm okay," he whispered, adjusting to pull Hitoshi onto the couch with him, snuggling into each other's arms. He smiled at Hitoshi, but it didn't stretch across his face. It was simply an upturn of his lips, not even reaching his glassy eyes. "You're okay," Hitoshi whispered back, interlocking his fingers behind Izuku's back. What the fuck is this author note? The author note in the bottom is, "Look, we got a little bit of fluff with the hug." That is not fluff. It's not healthy how Izuku and Hitoshi depend on each other. No, it's not. It's codependency, but it's also understandable because this codependency stems from trauma bonding. And trauma bonding is like so potent, so strong. Especially when it's like actual trauma bonding and not just like, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I trauma bonded with this person because we both shared each other's trauma." No, trauma bonding is when you go through similar instances and you meet one another and you bond over that. And then, then there's also, that one's the weaker version of it. And then there's the strong version of it, was where you both go through the absolute same, like the same thing together and you bond over that, right? And it is, a lot of the times not healthy. It can be healthy. It can very much be healthy and very therapeutic to have someone there with you who also knows your struggle or can understand you. So Izuku has very much trauma bonded with Hitoshi, with, what happened while they were together. And obviously because of that, Izuku already has that fundamental foundation of trust. So after Izuku goes through such a horrible event, he wants, his inner self wants to find something he finds comfortable. And Hitoshi happens to be that. And that could go to codependency. And codependency is not okay. Codependency is so, it's toxic. It's not healthy at all for both individuals. No matter what. It doesn't matter that, but they're healing each other. No. Codependency is never okay. I do like to, write it and read it. Do not get me wrong. So chapter number 30 is called "Please Hurry, Leave Me, I Can't Breathe." Okay, so I may have lied about the fluff part. It has some cute interactions. I got a bit carried away. You already told me how you have lied in your author's notes, how there is no fluff to come anytime soon, and that you are a lying liar who lies. So I don't know what to believe anymore. You motherfucking author's note. Fuck you. Summary: Izuku visits UA. Nezu takes an interest in the boys. Song is first love / late spring. You know what? For codependency, that makes sense. I'm glad Izuku's safe. I'd like to state that as well. I'm glad he's safe. The carvings of M on his hand are very alarming. Izuku's definitely gonna have severe trauma. Basically, I don't think he's gonna like enclosed spaces. He's gonna be very claustrophobic. I don't think he's going to appreciate restraints in any way, shape, or form. Something as small as, somebody stopping him from going outside a room by grabbing his hand, that would be a trigger, probably, maybe. There's a lot of things that psychologically is going on, especially since Izuku's I forget what age he is, but he's in the very, very big developmental part of his brain. And for things like this to happen, like this traumatic event, this is what causes OCD, BPD, PTSD, severe anxiety, severe depression. A lot of disorders stem from traumatic events that happen as, childhood. Even DDD, DID, dissociative identity disorder, DID, or DDD? No, it's DID. BPD, bipolar disorder. I'm not sure about... No, not bipolar disorder. Dissociative identity, no. BPD. Yeah, bipolar disorder. What's the other one? Where it's like type 2? It wasn't bipolar. It was, no, I'm thinking borderline personality disorder. BPD, borderline personality disorder. Hold on. Bipolar is the 2. Yeah, borderline personality disorder is what I'm thinking. BPD is borderline personality disorder. I'm like, BPD doesn't make sense for it to stand for bipolar disorder. Borderline personality disorder. I'm not sure about bipolar disorder, like bipolar 1 and 2. But I do know that borderline personality disorder often develops from traumatic events like this. So this could definitely develop BPD, DID, as I said, identity dissociative disorder, bipolar disorder, not bipolar, dissociate, fucking Christ, borderline personality disorder, OCD, severe anxiety, severe depression, obviously BPD, you could have both anxiety and depression. Those go hand in hand sometimes. Stuff like that where it's like a lot of things are gonna definitely be wrong because this is a very shitty event that happened to him, and there's a lot of things that go into play when it comes to shit like this. As I said, he could have separation anxiety. That's another thing that could happen. He might start to feel as though he can't be separated from Hitoshi without panicking. Stuff like that. Especially considering everything that has happened so far. It's a fucked up thing because this is all stuff that will affect him permanently. Even if he doesn't get any of these disorders, he's definitely getting at least depression or anxiety. There's no way he's not getting those. Especially considering at such a young age, he's already, He's already showing, not signs, but he's already showing passive scooter anchor ideation, which is, the thing of, you should have let me go, maybe I do deserve to, just, maybe it's okay, like, renouncing that whole thing of, like, I don't care if I die anymore. That is passive scooter anchor, passive ideation, that's the word I was looking for. Having to say scooter ankle fucks me up. But ideation, which is horrible to see in a kid that's no more than 10. It's absolutely horrid to see that in Izuku at such a young age. It's that type of ideation could lead to active scooter ankle ideation, which means it's no longer you should have left me to die, maybe I deserve to be dead. It's no longer that. It's planning, doing the they should have left me out to die, I should be dead, let me fix that error now, right? That's the difference between passive and active. Active, they're actively trying to. Passive, it just means that right now they're not actively trying to. They're just thinking it should happen, but I'm not going to make it happen. But that I'm not going to make it happen could switch at a dime. And that passiveness can turn on to active scooter ankle ideation. And that is when you become a threat to yourself. And it is dangerous. Obviously for obvious reasons, and to see Izuku at such a young age have the passive scooter ankle ideation, it's alarming. A lot of this is alarming. Psychologically, he just needs a lot of therapy, because even with therapy, it'll take a long road to recovery. It'll take a long way to unlearn all these behaviors. He's learning passive scooter ankle ideation, codependency, learned helplessness, self-hatred, anxiety, depression, all of this in your critical moments where this, like, at this time, and at Izuku's age, normally this is when kids start to, start developing a sense of self, and, in teenage years, obviously you get the whole, who am I, and fully exploring that, right? But at Izuku's age and around there, you start to, get the foundations of that. of what your personality is going to be, of what your things are going to, like, it's the foundations of that then get refined in your teenage years, and get solidified in your late teens slash, early adult, basically early adult years, from like 16, 17 to like 17, 18 actually, to like 25. Around that is when it solidifies, and it starts really, really solidifying, especially in those 20s. You start solidifying who you are, stuff like that. Like, it starts really solidifying. It's why I don't know if you've ever noticed this, if you're a teen right now, or if you were a teen, because there's no way you were not a teen. And if you're not a teen, why are you on YouTube? You shouldn't be. At least not this one. Go to YouTube Kids. But who you were at 13 is not the same of who you are in freaking 14. Something as simple as a year, and your personality could have a huge switch. Right? And that switch starts to become less and less dramatic as you rear closer to the age of 25, because that's when your brain fully develops. That's when your brain is completely fully developed. That doesn't mean you can't learn new traits, learn new things, develop it a little further, but that is typically the cutoff point. More could happen afterwards, obviously, but that's like the cutoff point. That's the average. Hey, at 25, who you are is is really solidified. The traits you have, honed are really, really solidified, and it just gets exponentially harder and harder as time goes on to change that or add to that. It's why it's easier for a 5-year-old to learn 3 languages in a freaking year, while a 30-something-year-old can only learn 1 in 3 years. Kids pick up this stuff a lot more faster because their brain is actively being developed, and they're actively setting the foundations that will, carry them throughout life. So yeah, a 5-year-old, a teen, a early 20-year-old have so much easier time learning a separate language and picking it up much, much faster than, say, a 30, 40, 50-year-old. It's just how it is. So for Izuku to be learning all this at an age where it solidifies the foundation of who you become, when your teen years you find it, and in your 20s it finalizes it and solidifies it, it is scary. And he needs to get into therapy now. Actually yesterday, technically, so that he could be on top of that and make sure that the least amount of damage happens, minimal damage, because there is no way that there's no damage. That's the thing about trauma. No matter how many years have passed, no matter how much therapy you've gone through, no matter what, a broken plate glued back together will always still have cracks. No matter what. You may have glued it back together to the point where it seems seamless, but the cracks are there. And without proper care, it will just go back to the same damn cracks. It will crack in the same damn place. And with that, I'll leave you guys. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.